This article reads how much she cares about the game. Not just about the game, Scotty. She cares about how Americans perceive the game. She wants Americans to have the knowledge of the game, for the game to continue to grow in the United States.
I totally agree with her. And I'm sure that's going to hurt people's feelings. And that's okay. Your feelings sometimes need to get hurt. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is change, and change isn't always easy, but necessary to grow. And in the context of how she said it, you also, I think, have to listen to there's more to just that the soccer fan isn't smart.
They haven't filled that box-to-box, technically sound player who can spew the ball out wide when need be or get it forward or receive it from a center back in a long time. It's a big addition to the midfield after losing Crystal Dunn.
There's also the history that Giant Stadium has. Beckenbauer, Pele, Canalia, Carlos Alberto. Like, the Cosmos was the first super team of super teams.
Welcome back into Straight from the Pitch. Plenty of things happening off the field in soccer this week. We're talking Lindsey Horan's article in The Athletic. The World Cup final will be played in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and some major NWSL signings this offseason. Let's start with the big topic. Alongside Scotty Schweitzer, I'm Anna Witte. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. Lindsey Horan's article in The Athletic has caused some major stirs, rightfully so to some people, and maybe not rightfully so to others. We are going to break down from different highlights of the article and kind of go through the entire thing. Let's start off the top. The one thing that Lindsey said was, you have to be amongst this team for a while to know what the F that takes. It's one of the most competitive national teams to be a part of. Scotty, how has this U.S. women's national team become the most competitive national team to be a part of? What is she trying to kind of say in that sentence?
I think part of it is the history of what they've done, their success, who they are, what they mean to the game itself, women's soccer and men's soccer, just to soccer in general. And I think she's right to step into an environment that already has such a great history. You just can't come in and think, okay, I'm just going to do my thing. You have to learn the culture of what it took to get where it's at. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what she was saying. And she's on that cusp of, there's a lot of change happening with Tobin Heath's gone. Kristen Press is probably gone. The older generation is gone. And now the younger generation is coming through it. And she has gone through it herself, but was one of the younger ones with a whole bunch of veteran players. And now the veteran players, I think, are outnumbered by the young new generation coming through. So I think she is trying to say to them, you just can't come in and do it your way. There's something that worked, and you have to take your way and what worked, and we have to mix them together and have this new way of doing things, but with part of history and part of the future coming together.
The history piece of it is so important. Like you said, if you look at Carly Lloyd, what she's done for the game and what she said since she's retired, Megan Rapinoe is now gone. Alex Morgan's now on the tail end of her career. Lindsey Horan, to me, is kind of like one of those red shirt seniors in her final season of playing collegiate soccer, where she's no longer really friends with the younger generation. She gets along, but her best buddies were the ones who were older and the ones that she looked up to. And now she's in a position where she's still friendly with the younger girls, but she has to set a standard. And that standard to her has always been what the players before her have done for the team. And coming out and making this statement is completely fair. And obviously national teams have gotten a lot better, and we'll dive into that later on in this topic. But now the U.S. is in this very important time in history where they lose the World Cup, and now they have to really turn things around with an amazing new head coach, but also some of this younger talent who looks at the world a lot different than she does.
Agreed. And like we were talking on right before we got on, and Horan is living in the social media world, but it's part of the end of her career where these players have been doing social media their entire lives. Like, I am not a big social media person. I don't agree with a lot of the things on there. I don't really have it. I have it basically because of this show and stuff like that. Really, my wife takes care of all my social media stuff. So if you see stuff posted, I didn't do it. My wife did it. And I don't think me as a player growing up when I grew up could even deal with some of the things that you have to deal with now. I was all about the game. It was a job. Yes, I loved it. It was the greatest job in the world, but I wasn't about being friends with friends on other teams. I was about winning games and being the best and winning trophies and being a champion. And the other thing that Horan has is she has been in Europe almost her whole life, probably longer than she's lived in America. So that there's a different culture over there of how you approach soccer. And even over there, when you listen to some of their pundits and stuff, they're talking about the different generation and how they approach it, like with the Rashfords going out the night before and then missing a training, and how, everyone's saying, well, that's the coach's job. Well, it was back in the day, the coach would never have to step into that situation because the veteran players would have took care of it before any of that ever could have happened. So she is in a place where she is loves the game, knows the game, but these younger players love the game, know the game, but they know it from a different culture also. So you're not just mixing philosophies of soccer, you're mixing cultures of soccer. And I think that's kind of what she was also alluding to as far as where the team needs to go and the direction they need to take. And I would think you're bringing in Emma Hayes, who is also coming from that European culture, which might be a little shocking to some of these younger players when everything gets going and she's on full time.
The next step for this US team is what is the biggest conversation really ever since they lost the World Cup. And it's about the style of play. And Lindsey went on to say in this article that she's spoken with the new head coach, Emma Hayes, about not just playing better, but thinking better. Hayes is coming from WSL, where soccer in Europe is a little bit more about the tactical style. Here in the NWSL, there's been more of an emphasis, and people have really made it a transitional style of soccer. This is what we've been saying for a while, is that US has to play the game a little bit better, be a little bit smarter. What do those next steps look like for Hayes and Horan together?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit difficult because at the same time, yes, we need to know the game better, and that is true. And I've been saying that for years myself, as a youth coach, as a fan of the game, as a person that watches. But then you cannot also lose your identity. So it'll be understanding the tactics being thrown at you, and then how do we have to adjust without losing our identity, and also being able to play a little bit different when needed, and then come back with our transition, which no one in the world I think can play transition soccer like we can, especially on the women's side. But you have to understand when it works, why it works, how it works, and against your opposition. And I think that's part of the thing we lose here in the US because everybody's basically playing transition soccer. So when we grow up, the youth level, we're all playing transition. Yes, we get a team here and there that plays a different brand of soccer. They might have Latin coaches or a coach that came over from Europe and they're coaching their youth system a little bit different. But it's hit or miss usually when we find those teams. Most teams are playing this transition soccer. That's what we know. That's what we have to pick from. And then now going forward, and we saw it in this last World Cup, so many teams with their tactics can derail the transition game and understand how to derail it. And that's what we have to learn is how do we keep it? When do we use it? And then do we have these other abilities to facilitate a different style of play? And that's going to be not an overnight thing that we can change.
The biggest thing to remember about Horan is she left high school when she was 18 years old, obviously, didn't play college soccer, went straight over to Europe, has played a few years in the NWSL, hasn't been in the NWSL since 2021. So the majority of her adult life on and off the pitch has been in Europe, has not been in the United States. The mentality of somebody in France is very different than somebody here in the United States. They're hard. They're much more honest than they are here in the United States. And this is exactly what she's kind of coming from, is just those experiences. And to look at Emma Hayes, she's only going to be with this US team 3 months full time before the Olympics. So Horan has an even bigger role as a captain than maybe prior years because there's not that full team head coach. I mean, Kilgore is stepping in as interim head coach, but this is Horan's team. She feels that. And obviously Alex Morgan was a captain for the World Cup as well. So her having these opinions, her having these conversations with Emma Hayes should excite US national team fans because she's having that forward-thinking mentality, knowing that yes, we have to continue to develop physically, but mentally having those conversations and taking those steps is just as important when Hayes actually gets here full time and we can really get going, ramping up to Paris.
And it's speculation on my part, but she says she's had conversations with Emma Hayes. So my thinking is this isn't just let me have an article and say whatever I want. This is almost like a planned. This is not just coming from Horan. This is the first words out of Emma Hayes's that needed to come from the leader, the captain, the person we're going to lean on, which we've done for a few years now, I feel that. And when you look at Horan, yes, I say it all the time. She has a different game than the American style. She has a very European style of play, which I love. And sometimes it fits really good in our game. And sometimes she's correct in saying, I had a terrible game. Because it's not necessarily that she's terrible. It's just the way the game flowed didn't fit her. She has more ebb and flow in her game, more pace and then changing of pace and slowing it down, then speeding it up. She has a different style where most of the times the Americans play one pace and here we go and here we're coming and we're coming and we're coming. And our mentality a lot of times in the past is also what got us through it. And I think she's talking about that also. We were not as mentally strong as we had been in the past in this last World Cup. So like when we got down, you could see it in body language. You could see it in our faces. Whereas in the past, these players said, don't worry, it's going to work. Just keep going, keep grinding, keep coming, keep coming. And then eventually the other team's body language changed and everything. But her saying that she has had conversations, I think this is a little bit of good cop, bad cop, maybe in a sense, but they're going to here's your captain, let your captain speak, because we haven't heard anything from Emma Hayes going against what she said. And if it was all on her own and she didn't agree with it, Emma Hayes is not someone that would hold back and not say, no, this is not right. We should have taken a different route with this. But so I kind of got the speculation on my part is this is almost a planned way of getting it started since I can't be there until 3 months before the Olympics. And it might hurt American fans. Of course, we're going to go try to win the Olympics. But I think the Olympics is just another training ground for winning the World Cup and going into the future. I can't believe you've got to think you're going to get it all done in 3 months.
Absolutely not, especially with the way that the World Cup ended in 2023. There's so much that has to change between the tactical side, even personnel, the mental side of the game. And Horan went on to say that she recognizes the success the team has had in the past, but also how the game is changing and improving, especially in Europe, and how these European teams recognize when the U.S. is getting down on themselves and they know how to continue to go after them, where as in the past, maybe these national teams haven't been able to overcome what the U.S. has been able to put at them. So then Horan went on to say, which this is where a lot of people have gotten upset. American soccer fans, most of them aren't smart, she says. They don't know the game, they don't understand, but it's getting better and better. Why would Horan make this comment to a reporter instead of in a sit-down interview where she can talk and her dialect and the way that she talks can be directly understood?
That I don't know, but I totally agree with her. And I'm sure that's going to hurt people's feelings. And that's okay. Your feelings sometimes need to get hurt.
Yeah.
Sometimes the hardest thing to do is change, and change isn't always easy, but necessary to grow. And I agree. And in the context of how she said it, you also, I think, have to listen to there's more to just not the soccer fan isn't smart, because I think she brings up her mom saying, hey, I thought you played a great game. And so did Julie Foudy. And I've been saying this for years. The American commentator, when they commentate on the American game, the national team or MLS games or even NWSL games, they're they don't like to say negative things about anybody. So like Julie Foudy very rarely says anything negative about the stars, Alex Morgan, Horan herself, when they make mistakes or bad decisions. And in Europe, they are calling out players all the time. They are always calling out. So I don't think it's just the American fan. The American fan has a bad habit of listening to the commentator because they know who they are. Listen, Clint Dempsey said basically the same thing a couple months ago. He was on that show where they're all talking up in a loft, and he said to Thierry Henry, man, if I had you as a coach, as a youth player, I would have made it so much further in the game. So he was basically saying the same thing. Listen, the American fan has to be, a lot of them are youth coaches in America. And if you just look at the youth game in America, it's nowhere where it should be.
Right.
It's way below where the level that it should be based on the talent that we actually have at our disposal. So he was saying the same thing. He just didn't directly call anybody out like the American fan. And like for Alexi Lalas to come back and then shoot it down and say what he said is that's what the announcers do here. We had somebody comment on something a while back on one of our podcasts and said, wow, what a great podcast. Really smart, real great information, really understand it. But I'm not going to listen to an hour of this show of two people I don't know. I'd much rather listen to Sam Mewis and
Lynn
what's
Williams.
the Lynn Williams. But like you don't know us, and because you don't know us, we don't have any good information. Like that.
Or
That's
we
not
don't have any, or we don't have anything that we don't have the resume that like qualifies us to be
right.
knowledgeable.
And to be honest, you don't know my resume. Like you don't know it. I did it with the youth team a couple years ago where they would come to us on their day off, basically. And we were training a team, a high level team. And I said to the boys, would it make a difference if I played for the national team? Would it make a difference if I played in Europe? Would it make a difference if I played, 14 years as a pro? Would it make a difference if I was a Hall of Famer in like my high school? Would it make a difference if I was a Hall of Famer in the league I played? And they were like, yeah. And I said, well, I did all of that. Like, I don't have to go around telling everybody what I did. I don't care if you know my resume or don't know my resume. Listen to the information coming out, and that'll make a lot. Then you can agree with that or disagree with that. But some people just agree with things because they know that person talking because they played in the league or did this. Like, we're going to see it in the NFL. Greg Olsen does a wonderful job,
Yep.
but he's going to lose his spot to Tom Brady because Tom Brady is Tom Brady. None of us know if Tom Brady's a good commentator or not a good commentator. We would assume he is, but we don't know yet. We don't know if he is or isn't, but they're going to lose Greg Olsen maybe because Tom Brady is more popular with the American fan of football than Greg Olsen is and has a better resume playing wise, but that doesn't make him a better commentator.
Right.
So like for me, it's like that's kind of what happens, I think, in American soccer is we hire people because we know them. Listen, I like Clint Dempsey. I think Clint Dempsey is good because he's very honest, but he got the job because he's the most recognizable American male soccer player that we have right now. So that's why he got the job, because going into it, if you watch what he did on the field, you got to think, well, this guy's going to be really disgruntled as a commentator. He's not, but he is very honest. Lexi Lalas, with his red hair and his goatee back in the day and with the 94 World Cup team, he was the most recognizable player we had, not the best player. And now people listen to him like he's a soccer god. And a lot of the things that comes out of his mouth is just so that he has another day of work going forward, in my opinion. And I think that's part of what Horan was saying is, and then we as soccer fans listen to people that aren't giving the truth of what Horan had a bad game. Say it. Soccer players want honesty. Most of us want the honesty so
Oh
that we
yeah.
know what we have to improve on, what we have to do better. Like when we watch an MLS game, I want to say that's a bad play. That's terrible soccer right there. That should be better. The standard should be higher. But if it doesn't be said, then you go into the next game thinking you did okay. And that's not fair to the player. That's not fair to the fan. That's not fair to the game.
I think too, with your point, Lindsey Horan and just commentators making comments on the game. These players want to get better, but all American soccer fans, like they do want to get better too. They want to understand the game better. And I think that's exactly what Horan is saying when she says some of our fans aren't smart. Maybe it's on us in some ways to continue to educate these fans who come over from American football or come over from baseball and now they're interested, but we're not maybe providing them the information in a way that can make them better. And it's this cyclical cycle that Horan is talking about. So I think in France too, if Horan were to make that comment, she would hurt no feelings. I've never been to France, but my experience with people from France is they're tough people. They can take hard information and go and learn from it. Well, here in America, as you know, it's tougher to take hard criticism and apply it to get better. So Horan's just being herself in that comment, and her kind of throwing her mom under the bus as well is a completely fair statement. My mom's been watching soccer for over 20 years and she's not the most knowledgeable about the game. My dad would probably say the same, but I think that's on us as soccer knowledgeable people. And one of the reasons why we started the show is to continue to educate these people, no matter how smart we are at the game. What I wanted to say too was Peter Schrager is on Good Morning Football. It's one of my favorite sports shows to watch in the morning. He knows more about football than Hall of Famer quarterbacks or whoever, athletes know about the game. He's not in the booth calling the games because he's never played the sport, but just his knowledge is a great example of you don't have to have played the game at all to have great knowledge of the sport. So I think there, Horan is just trying to be extremely honest and was a little bit taken out of context. And then Horan went on to say that the NWSL starting 11 pictures makes it feel like it's not taken as serious. She thinks it's a little too silly. She said she wants professionalism. And Rodman went on to say this week in a press conference just that they're going to continue to take those pictures. Didn't take any ill will against Horan, didn't make a comment at her necessarily. Just a throwaway comment. The seriousness of these NWSL starting 11 photos. Everyone likes to approach their jobs in a different way. And a very serious moment, some people want to keep that moment serious. And whereas some players or people in a serious moment want a bit of levity and want to have fun with it, or maybe want something for their Instagram profile, where I'm on the opposite end of the social media world as you, Scotty. I know the importance of social media and what it can do for somebody's career. So if you're showing that you're having fun, maybe that's important for a player's profile. But when you look at that comment and Horan maybe dissing NWSL a little bit and not having that professionalism, what do you make of it?
I think that's fair in the point of that's her way of thinking. And then you have the younger generation that has come up something different. Like to me, that's always going to take place. I'm sure there's old school baseball players that don't like the way the game is being played now. There's old school football. Tom Brady said he was watching terrible football this year. We're just different generations where there is a certain thing that is this is what we grew up with. This was the mentality. This was the culture. But then the culture changes and things go in a different way. I'm with Horan. I think it's silly, but I didn't grow up in this generation. Like, I also think the game is soft. I think, good God, there's way too many red cards. There's not allowed to be enough hard tackles. This weekend, we watched the Chelsea game, or I watched the Chelsea game, and Tim Howard came on, who I think does a great job. And I think there's a reason he's doing EPL games, not MLS games, because he speaks a very knowledgeable game. But he was saying, even listen, we don't like the hard tackles. We don't like it when you get up in a referee's face. We don't like the grabbing of the shirts. But Chelsea's in a place right now where that was the only way to get some of the momentum back, because they're not doing it with their play. And that's necessary to be a part of it. So, like, he's even younger than me, but like, as the game changes and goes and grows, you have to change and grow with it. So I think that's like Haran is coming from at the end of her career, where when she retires and is done, there's going to be a lot more things that she's not appreciative of. When you listen to Carly Lloyd's comments throughout the World Cup and stuff, she's retired and she came up in a generation even before Haran. So there was a lot of things she didn't like about the way the U.S. was approaching things. She didn't like the dancing. She didn't like this. She didn't like the celebrations. She didn't, but that's all part of the game now. The game is completely different than it used to be, for better or for worse. We still have Messi. We still have Ronaldo. We have these great players. We have these Bellinghams. We have Trent Alexander-Arnold. We have Foden. We have these younger players that we have the ability to watch. And we have young high school girls coming out and making it pro. So, like, I understand where she's coming from, but that's just part of the game and how it changes. And then that's every player's opinion of what they like and don't like. Like, when I was coaching the pro team here, I hated the guys having their headphones in during warmups. I hated it. But that's, like, I look around and like the other team's doing it. This team's doing it. I don't like when the teams are like, after warmups, we're walking in the locker room, everybody's hugging. Like, we're not friends. We can be friends after this game. But that's just the way the game has gone. It's just,
Yeah.
it's not mine to keep it one way, or the game changes and you have to adapt with it and grow with it. And she can have that opinion. And I think Rodman's right. She's like, that's what we do. And
Yeah.
I don't know that it's an NWSL thing or if it's just a younger generational thing. Because when you look at some of the club teams, when they're taking pictures, they're doing the same thing.
Right.
But these are their role models that they're looking up to. Whereas Haran was looking up to different role models who did it a different way. But the game is constantly going to change and we have to be able to adapt with it.
That's what this article really was about, is how much the game is changing from a soccer level and from a people level. People are different these days than they were 10, 15 years ago, and that's okay. But we do have to learn how to get all of those types of people on the same page to put out a great product on the pitch. One last comment that Horan made in this article that is important. She said, "We need to change every bit of culture that we had prior to the last World Cup and going into this Olympics because we need to win. And that starts now." Lindsey Horan is this team captain. How will the rest of this team look at her now that she has made these comments in The Athletic?
I like it that she did it because I used to make comments like this myself. And one of the reasons I would do it is it puts pressure on you. And I was a player that liked pressure. So now the way they're going to take it, if Lindsey Horan goes out on that field and is the most dominant, best player on our team, then you better listen to her.
Right.
And she put that pressure on herself. So if she's saying, look, this is the way I want it done, and this is the way I do it, and because I do it like this, look at the results I'm getting. So maybe you can look at your ways, make some adjustments to them, and then we can do it for the team. I also feel like, and it's not just a national team thing, I think it's a U.S. thing and it's a U.S. youth thing, is we play for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We very rarely play for the team. Like we want our personal accolades. We want our awards. We want our, and like for me, that's why I think, why my brain skipping, Germa. She's like a fresh breath of fresh air because she's old school. She's a young soul that's an old soul that plays the game old school. She was all about the team. She's all for everybody. She doesn't care if she gets awards. And because she does it that way, I feel like that's why she gets awards, not just her talent, but she's all about the team. If we said to her, we need you to play six, there wouldn't be one squirmish about it. We play now at next level. We play this futsal. There's 4 players on the field in futsal. It's a game about all touch and everything. And we'll move players around in the lineup, and players will be like, "But I'm a forward," and I'm like, "There's 4 of us on the field. We're all forwards. We're all defenders. We're all midfielders. Like, what do you like?" But if you put them in a position, they're like, "Whoa, hey man, you're hurting me personally." Like it's that we're playing futsal to get more touches, to get in more different situations, to be able to, can you dribble out of the back? Can you dribble out of tight spaces? Can you find the pass? And you get these young players like we're trying to hurt their growth. Like instead of realizing that we're trying to help your growth and putting you in different environments and different situations is one way we do it. We might realize, hey, don't ever play in the back. You don't understand the game back
Right.
there. You're going to hurt the team. That's okay. We finding your weakness is just as important as finding your strength to
Mm-hmm.
know what you can and what you can't do. And I think that's part of what she's also saying in this article is it's not just the national team that has to change. It's the build up to becoming the national team and building up to what we want to achieve at the end road. And I think that's in the article, that's a lot of it. How I took it was she wasn't just bad mouthing certain players or certain generations. It was, hey, we were top of the world. And to get back to being the top of the world, it's going to take all of us fans, announcers, coaches, youth players, the national team players, everybody. It has to buy into this.
Podcasters.
Podcasters, people who badmouth podcasters.
Exactly. All of us here in the United States. And the one word that you continue to use is we. Haran didn't call out anybody individually outside of Foudy, but to me, that was more of a throwaway comment from Haran just to make a point. Haran knows that this is a we game. In order for us to be successful, I say us, I'm not included in that. The US women's national team to be successful, everyone has to be involved. Like you said, this is a national team where sometimes players are all about accolades, what they can do for themselves, what they can do for their legacy going forward. Haran has taken this role as a captain very seriously and has proven that she wants everyone to be successful. But in order to be successful, we have to hold ourselves to a very high standard. She starts with herself. And to me, this article reads how much she cares about the game. Not just about the game, Scotty. She cares about how Americans perceive the game. She wants Americans to have the knowledge of the game, for the game to continue to grow in the United States, to continue to push her to be the best player so that these younger players maybe pushing for her spot in 4 years can't get it because she's continuing to get better. She's a competitive person. She's a leader and she's someone who cares about the sport. And if you take anything else away from this article, you should know that. And you should not be offended or butthurt by these comments by Haran. I love the honesty and I want to continue to see more of this from Haran.
Yeah, I when I read the article at the end of the article, I said, well, got the right person as our captain.
Right.
That's exactly what I thought. I said, man, we got the right person to be our captain. And I feel that me personally, like I said, I played in Europe, and I really was like, wow, wow, like where have all these people been? This is how I feel about the game myself. And like in the US, I got a little taste of it in college. When I finally got to college, it was every man, every player at NC State, Tarantini included, our coach, was all about us getting better, us making the game better, us making NC State better, but nothing like I got to be ACC player of the year. None of us ever thought of things like that. It was just, how can we continue to get better? I never played in the game at college that was harder than our own training sessions. And that's just how hard we pushed each other. And then I went to Europe, and I was like, I tell players all the time, man, you lose a home game, man, you sit in that locker room a long time, because those fans are waiting for you outside. Your home fans are waiting for you to let you have it, that it's not good enough. Like I just saw a game the other day where Crystal Palace lost, and their fans would not leave the stadium until the players came over and they could argue with them. And the fans were saying, like, you're not playing for the crest. You're not playing for the history of this club. And it was awesome to see. And like here, like if I go to a Courage game and they lose, and I walk out and go into my car, you hear, well, the referee cheated us. Blah, blah, blah is the worst. That team cheated. They're playing dirty. Like, man, if we own up, if we didn't show up, we didn't show up. I'm a Liverpool fan, and we just lost to Arsenal. And my brother's an Arsenal fan. He texted me, and he's like, was there a game today? And I said, listen, you stink and we stink, and it's City's title now. And I said, and the reason is because Arsenal's already proven they're not mentally tough enough. And Liverpool proved in that game that they're not mentally tough enough. It's not about sometimes quality on the field, quality of your abilities. It's how tough you are as a champion. And that is like that's what we used to have. That's what we didn't have in this last World Cup. We still have quality players, but are we mentally strong enough day in and day out from what it's going to take? Like Spain was amazing. They were amazing. Get ready, Spain, because everybody's coming for you now. Now you're on top of it. So, and here we come. So are you mentally strong enough? Are you tough enough to handle every game being a World Cup final for everybody else when they play you? And that's what I think Horan is saying, like, to get back where we need to get to, it's not when we choose, oh, I want to be good today. It's every day, every training, everything. And then she takes little shots at the joking around pictures that we take or whatever. But like, that's just how she was brought up. Like I said, she's been in Europe forever. She's not an American soccer player. She doesn't look like it when she plays. She doesn't have that brand of soccer. So I agree with her. And I'm sure there's things that in the game that totally, like I said, bother me, but the game changes. Players are different things. Social media is a huge thing now. People are trying to make their money as fast as they can possibly make it. Whereas, listen, when I was playing, there was no money in the game. So nobody cared about money. It was just about playing, making sure you were in the starting lineup every week, making sure you had a team every year. That's kind of what, and everyone trains super hard. And I think that's what she's kind of was saying is like, yeah, the game is changing, but it's going to take everything you got to get back to where we were.
Money changes the game too, as well. And that's why we've seen social media be a big thing. And I don't blame the players looking to chase down their money. They don't know when their career might be over. We're going to stay on the topic of the World Cup. We're going to shift to the 2026 World Cup that will be here in the United States. It has been announced, drumroll please, that MetLife Stadium is going to be the host of the 2026 World Cup final. The two other venues that were in consideration were Dallas and Los Angeles. Ironically, Dallas will host the most games. They'll have 9 games in the World Cup. LA will host the United States' first game on June 12th, 2026. The opening game will be in Mexico City on June 11th, and Miami will host the third place playoff game. Why would FIFA make the decision to make MetLife, New York City, East Rutherford, New Jersey, whatever you want to call it, the home of the World Cup final?
Because we're the best.
No.
Well, I'm from New
That is
Jersey,
false.
so I'm super excited. I
Yeah.
would also wouldn't have minded Dallas because my mother-in-law lives in Dallas and we have some connections there. So I think I might be able to get into some games in there,
Yes.
just with our connections. I think though, when you really look at U.S. soccer and there's great cities, don't get me wrong, But New York, I think the city is what drew him there. I don't think
Right.
it has anything to do with the stadium. The stadium's not great. Listen, the Jets don't want to be there. The Giants don't want to be there.
That's where
It's
Aaron
been there.
Rodgers tore his friggin' Achilles, and definitely no one wants to be
Well,
there.
it's going to be grass, so we're not going to have to worry
I
about
know.
that silly little turf field and everything. But I think it's the city. Like if the Portuguese fans come on to Ironbound section in Newark, and you'll think you're in Portugal. Like go to Little Italy, you'll think you're in Italy. Like there's a German section. There's everything. New York has everything, and I understand LA is great, Dallas is great. There's some great cities. Seattle is great, but there's also the history that Giant Stadium has. I don't think there's any question. And that's not even, I'm talking soccer history. Beckenbauer, Pele, Canalia, Carlos Alberto. Like the Cosmos was the first super team of super teams. First $1 million athlete in the United States, Pele. I mean, playing for the Cosmos. The NWSL failed because the Cosmos owner had so much money that everybody tried to keep up with them and they all went bankrupt. That's why MLS is single entity. That's why they have what they have, the way they structured their business is because of what happened in the NWSL. But the history of Giant Stadium and the games that were played in there, just soccer games that were played in Giant Stadium, I just think it's a great venue and it's so accessible for fans coming from other places.
Yeah.
You got 3 airports that you can come from Europe and hit. It just makes the most sense because people are going to be coming just for that game and have saved up life savings just to go to the World Cup final. And it's just so accessible to come from anywhere to get to New York City. I don't think, the MetLife Stadium is in New Jersey. And they're right. People are right. It's in a swamp area, but most stadiums are built on cheap land. That's just the way they work. It's just easy to get that land, and then you got to build on it. But I thought it was great. I'm being from New Jersey. I think it's amazing. I know.
Question. If you were coming over from Europe or really anywhere outside the United States, where would you suggest they stay?
Stay in the city. Stay in New York. Stay in Manhattan. Stay wherever you. I mean, and just take it all in. Go sightsee and visit everything. And I think it's just going to be, because it's the World Cup, it's just going to be, everything's going to be amped up even more.
Right.
Like I said, I grew up in New Jersey, but I spent a lot of time in New York City in the nighttime, and it's just things are going on that is just amazing. It's an amazing city. I've been to Paris. I've been to LA. New York is my favorite. It's just a different place. And that's a place where you're going to celebrate. If I was going to live, I would go to Charleston. But if I'm going to celebrate and have a good time, I'm picking New York City every night of the week,
Yeah.
every night of the week. And I think that's part of the allure of what drew the final two. Because I've been to Dallas and I love Dallas. I think it's a really cool city, but it's not New York City.
You've
And
never been to
it's not,
Dallas.
it's a good city.
I know. And I also think too, to your point, uh, New York is so accessible. Like it's that direct flight from Europe. If you're flying all the way to Los Angeles, it's almost like flying to Australia for people in Europe. Dallas is so wicked hot in the middle of the summer. And I know that Jerry Jones indoor facility, or rather their field, is inside, but it's still so hot for people to be there in the summer that New York provides that relief in the summer. And it's outside. I mean, MetLife can house 82,500 people. They hosted the Copa America final in 2016. So to your point, they know what it's like to host these massive events, and it'll have grass. They're going to take out the turf field, and they're going to put on a beautiful surface. It's easily accessible from the city.
I think I also read they're going to add seats
Oh,
somehow.
are they? I would
There's going
assume
to be.
so.
I knew that I was reading that article before it ever got announced, and that was one of their things they put in to help allure FIFA for picking them and making them their choice. They were going to be able to add seats to Giant Stadium without affecting the field, so that they could get more fans into. So. And again, like I said, like I grew up in New Jersey, and in New Jersey you have Kearney, which is the Scottish section. So like it's just there's everyone I think is gonna like the little sections of the area is gonna like even amp it up more for the people coming over to show what they have. Like I said, like I lived in Ironbound I have friends that are Portuguese and they owned restaurants, and we would go watch Champions League and skip school or leave school and go down into Ironbound. And I played for the Ironbound Strikers, and it was just an awesome area. Like you walk in there and you're going in Newark and you're going through the ghetto, and then all of a sudden you're like, where am I? I'm in Europe somewhere. It's just this little section. It's all run by the Portuguese, and it's just the
Cool.
coolest little section. And Carney was like that. I mean, I played for the Carney Thistle. That was Harks and Tab and Tony Miola, and all of us played there. And then, you after the games, you go to the Scots Club, and they're singing songs for their team. And like they would come to us, and we were like, I didn't know what this was. I didn't know the European style yet of soccer and how they're so invested into their fans and into their team. And I think we have a lot of that in New York, which when these fans come over, it's not going to be that big of a culture shock in a sense coming
Right.
into America. There's going to be these little parts of you're an Italian fan and you want Italian food, go to Little Italy. You'll think you're at home. You'll think you're back in Italy. It's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And New York is so accessible to other cities as well. Like it's easy to get to Boston. You don't need to go to Philly. I don't love Philly, but you can go to Philly if you want to. You can go to the Cape, which is beautiful the time of year that the final will be taking place. MetLife Stadium was also voted the worst playing surface in the NFL by players per The Athletic. Granted, they're changing the surface, but that was probably the biggest piece for MetLife, was to prove that they're going to actually do that if they want to have this final. And I've just enjoyed all like the gifs and the memes people have made out of this, where like European looking for an Airbnb in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and they show up with this like guy making this ugly face, cringing. I think it's just really funny, and I do think this was a really good decision by FIFA. I think it's going to be really exciting. Easily accessible. There's so much to do in the city for everyone, for female fans, for male fans, for people who aren't fans of the sport. You want to come to New York. Like any European that I personally know, the biggest city on their list is this New York or it's Los Angeles. And to
Yep.
me, you don't want to be in Los Angeles, especially right now with the weather, like just such an unpredictable city. So this is super exciting for FIFA and for the World Cup that will be here in 2.5 years.
The other thing I love that the World Cup did is in the group stage, the travel is way better. So, like, we only know the U.S. really and Canada and Mexico, but the
Right.
travel is not like when we played in Brazil, we traveled more than anybody. So, like, in your group stage, you go and watch the U.S. You're going L.A. twice and Seattle once, which is an easy trip, pretty much. It's an easy trip. It's not like you're traveling cross country, which I think was a really good decision that Mexico will have all their games in Mexico. Canada will play all their games in Canada in their group stage. I think it's just really well thought out as how helping the fans. Everything was about the fans, making it an easier for the fans instead of like, oh, US plays in LA, then they play in New York, and then they play in Dallas. That's a lot of travel for the fans to get to the game. So,
Yeah.
like, if you want to see your team, you can see all three of their matches with very limited travel compared to what it could have been. I think that was a real smart decision by FIFA, how they set up the games in the group stages.
Yes, I think this whole World Cup is going to be really fun just to see what kind of fans travel, how the United States welcomes all of these new fans, and just what it does for the culture of the States, the culture of soccer in the States. So much to look forward to. We'll continue to track everything that's happening ahead of the 2026 World Cup in the United States. Staying with international soccer, NWSL has signed some major signees ahead of the 2024 season. The first one is the Canadian midfielder Jessie Fleming. She comes over from Chelsea, where she hasn't played a ton of minutes this season, but she will be playing for the Thorns. The biggest thing that Thorns head coach Mike Norris said was he was excited for a box-to-box midfielder, and that's not something Portland has traditionally really had. Honestly, since Lindsey Horan left in 2021, they haven't filled that box to box, technically sound player who can spew the ball out wide when need be or get it forward or receive it from a center back in a long time. It's a big addition to the midfield after losing Crystal Dunn. How do you see Fleming fitting into Portland and the NWSL this season?
I think it's amazing. I really do. I'm a huge Jessie Fleming. I was a fan of hers when she was at UCLA. I was a fan of hers when
Mhm.
she first popped on the scene with Canada as I think a 16-year-old or whatever she was. She's very, very intelligent. She's a smaller by statue player, but I think she's a player that's going to fit perfectly with my God, my brain's not working
Sam
today.
Coffey?
Sorry.
Come on.
Yeah, I think
You
she's
know
going
you
to be
did great.
perfect with it because they play a very similar, intelligent game. And almost going on back weirdly to the terms of what Haran was saying, I think a lot of American fans miss how good Sam Coffey is because she doesn't do anything like she doesn't have this wow dribble. Not
Yeah.
that she can't do it. She just makes the game so simple and so easy that we miss how good she really is. Well, Fleming's a very similar player to Coffey, a little bit sometimes more offensive minded. I think she's going to work really, really well with her and in that system of how Portland knocks the ball around and moves the ball around. And I like what Portland did overall in the sense they've kept some of their veteran players. They have a youth movement coming in. I think she's going to be great, Fleming, with Moultrie. I think that midfield is going to be, once they get together and start clicking, they're going to be dangerous to stop because they're so technically sound and tactically sound that it's going to be hard for teams to keep coming up with game plans within the game plan to stop them, because I think they're going to be able to make adjustments on the fly against teams and how they play against them.
I'm looking up Chelsea Fleming's age because I don't want to get it wrong. I want to say she's 25. And give me one
Yeah.
second. Born in 98. So yeah, 25 years old. She's
And
still
she's
young.
been around forever.
Exactly. She's got the experience. She's got the age on her side. She's the ability to actually be an influential box-to-box midfielder who can actually make those runs, and to have Olivia Moultrie continuing to learn in her young career, but actually be at the place too where she can compete for that position. I think that's good for both of their growth. And this is what Portland really needed, was to shore up that midfield.
Yeah, and I think a lot of teams now, you see them and we see it in all of soccer. We either have a double pivot or two tens, and I think this will be one of the first midfielders that has a 6, an 8, and a 10.
Yeah.
Like the triangle is going to be offset, so it's hard to defend where to go, where do we step, when do we step, where do we hold, what's our line of confrontation. I think that's going to be what's difficult when you play against them, is because this triangle is going to be on different lines throughout the field, and that makes it hard to defend because it doesn't really give everybody's role make it real specific. You're going to have to figure it out. Who steps, who's holding, where's the cover, where's the balance. Those are going to be hard things to figure out when you play against this midfield. And then with the ability of, now you got Sophie Smith up top, and you got these wingers that just fly up and down the wing. You got outside backs that understand the game. And, Sarah Brown will be coming back with no injuries, hopefully, and she'll be able to organize and get everybody set. And I think Portland just, like we said, they're just a machine. They know what to do. They know who to get. They know what their style of play is. They know what their culture is, and that's who they bring in. I think this was a great signing.
Norris knows what he's doing. Last year might have been a downslope a little bit for Portland, but Norris seems to have gotten his confidence back and kind of his footing underneath him as to where and what direction he wants to go with it. He's found kind of his style and how that fits within the Portland club. And bringing in a Jessie Fleming, I think, is very important and influential for this team in the season. So that's a big one out of Chelsea. The next big one, maybe even bigger, is Nigerian forward Asisha Oswala from Barcelona. She's going to Bay FC through 2026. Told the Equalizer, she said, I like the fact that they want to do something different, something that you don't see in the NWSL every time. Mostly this league is about transition, but he wants something different. He wants to keep the ball. He wants to play an attacking style of football. And I feel like coming from Barcelona is something I would really love to be a part of. Oswala has had 117 goals, 14 trophies in just 5 years with Barcelona. Her experience, her speed, her actual size is going to be, and her confidence, I mean, you can hear it right there in what she told the Equalizer, is going to be so influential for a team in their inaugural season.
So for me, this is, I love what she said, but it's like when a brand new car comes out, you're not supposed to buy it until 2-3 years down the line, so that you make sure that the new car is what everyone said it was going to be. So San Fran can talk, the Bay Area can talk about how they want to play and what they want to do.
Fair.
But they also have to then prove it. And she is leaving what they talked about to her and sold her on. She is leaving that with Barcelona. So maybe the Barcelona coach leaving and coming to Washington has a little bit to do with it. There's other things. But how they're selling their team to these players, that someone's doing a really good job, because she is leaving Barcelona, which maybe plays the prettiest brand of soccer in the world on the women's side, to come to something that hasn't even been really established yet. We haven't even seen it. We haven't even seen it take the pitch. All we get are pictures of training camp. So hopefully it is what she has been told it's going to be. Hopefully for us, the fans, it is what we're being told it's going to be. We'll have Bay Area. I think Portland will fall into a more possession team with the ability to transition. And we have the courage. So now you have 3 teams playing a little bit different brand of soccer. and making the league that much better. And maybe other teams will follow suit of that. You got to think Washington will do it when the coach gets here, and they're going to
Geraldo's,
be
yeah.
more of a possession based brand of soccer also. So you're seeing the game develop here in the US, which is what Horan was talking about in her article, which I think is going to help our national team, which is going to help Emma Hayes have different abilities to throw different lineups with different attacking or tactical deceptions to it. So I think it's all good for the US and it's going in the right direction. And like Tim Howard said, they are capitalizing on what they have right now, the NWSL. They are capitalizing on it and making the league stronger and better and going forward to make it the strongest, best league in the world. And you're seeing it taking place right now with all these players coming over.
As I was preparing for the show and specifically this segment, I was thinking about what if I was just an American player who is in the NWSL right now, who's coming out of the college game. I mean, you're looking at these players who have had a wealth of experience, not just here in the States, but overseas, maybe at the college game, maybe just going straight into the professional game. And now you're having to compete. So it raises the level for these American players coming out of the college game. It makes their mindset change a little bit, what they're actually competing with, knowing that they're going to have to get better at the tactical game because there are these European players coming to the States and really competing. And I think what Albertine Montoya is building with that style that Oswala said is important, is key. But you make a great point. Like, we actually have to see all these players come together and what's it going to look like? Because even with the Courage at the beginning of last season, it wasn't beautiful from the jump. They figured it out eventually, but it takes time. And the biggest question for these players that they'll have to answer is, are they willing to be patient for it to take time and for it to develop with these relationships?
I totally agree. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. Sometimes it's just the wrong mix, and we see the game different than our coaching staff, different than the players on the field. And I think we're going to see a lot of that throughout the league, and not even with just players coming over, but the change in personnel. So, like the Courage, they have a lot of different brand new faces. So we know the style and system they want. Hopefully, their core can help the new players understand it faster. The Bay Area, that's a brand new team. Angel City, they've made changes. So how are they going to look? What are they going to do? Washington, changing of coaching staff. Players are coming in and out of there. So I think it's going to be a real interesting season to see who gets it early, who maintains it, who picks it up later in the season. So like we're really not going to get a real gist of this season, I don't think, till 10, 14 games into the season, till
For
we
sure.
really see where a team gets a stronghold of who their personality is. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest things going into the season that we see is teams aren't going to have a personality in the beginning, or some are going to have great preseason camps and they're going to have a personality. And then can they maintain it as we start to be able to watch more film and understand each other?
And with it being an Olympic year, it's going to throw a lot of wrenches into some of these coaches' plans with not only who's the starting player, but who's the depth player coming off the bench. And, the Olympics, there will be a break in the NWSL schedule, of course, but there's going to be players who are trying to ramp up for the Olympics. There's just players are going to be in different positions this season, just like they were last year. And coaches who are able to handle that are going to be the coaches who have success in the league. One last player to touch on and add to this Bay FC side is Venezuelan forward Diana Castellanos from Manchester City. Per ESPN, her deal is worth an estimated $1.8 million over 4 years, which would make her the highest paid international NWSL player. ESPN also reported that she had conversations with the staff and that her ideal position would be a 10, which is to be expected. But again, this is a new team, a new club. Who knows if that's the best position for Castellanos with her teammates, or maybe it's one of her teammates is better in that position within this system. We'll find out. But no matter what it is, it's a great ad from another great club in WSL.
Yeah, this is to me those three signings are very eye-opening. This is something the MLS needs to take a look at. I feel like the NWSL is constantly ahead of the MLS. They've gotten free agency done quicker and better than the MLS has done. They also has changed their salary cap and the way they allocate their money towards their players. Listen, that's 1.8 2 million and then a 1.5 that we know of. So now
Right.
players are getting more money and asking for more money, which is drawing these European leagues that are good. I think the other allure to the NWSL is the parity in the league. Like, listen, as a player, you want to be in a good game every game. Yes, we want to win them, but you also want to be good games. I don't want to be like, I watch some of the European scores come across my screen and stuff like 5-0, 7-0, 10-0. Like, I don't want to be in that game. I'm not learning as much as I possibly can about where my growth in the game is. So here in the NWSL, the games are every game's a good game. One can beat, well, last year 12, this year probably 14. Any given day, anyone can beat anyone. And now you're adding the money. And again, this is what Tim Howard was talking about. We have to change the amount of money in the MLS. It can't just be the Messis, the Busquets, everybody. That's going to allure better players to come over. Younger players, they're going to come and want to start their careers here and maybe finish their careers here and or be here their whole entire career. And go ahead.
No, I have a question on that. Do you think if MLS started smaller in the sense that NWSL started with owning so many clubs, that maybe they would have found success going forward? I mean, now MLS is at almost 30 clubs. That's a lot to have actual parity in the league.
Yeah, but it did start really small. It was super small. I can't remember the exact number. It was like 12, maybe even less than that.
That's
It was
fair.
it was super small. What they did was in the beginning, nobody wanted to play here. There was
Yeah.
their single entity is not player friendly. And it's gotten better, but in the beginning it was atrocious. It was, and they thought who they were. Like, I did not go to the MLS combine, the original one. I was invited, but I was playing. So to me, it was like, why don't you just come watch me play? Why do I have to go to a combine? I'm in a season getting paid. They just expected players to leave their teams because this is the MLS. And listen, I came back from Europe to help build the league in America. I thought it was my duty as a player to come back and help for the future of the game and make it. Listen, it's big and people know it. And Adidas got on board and everybody got on board. And there was all kinds of things the MLS went through with, whether it be the shootout, which was 35 yards from goal. You have 5 seconds to score, which there was crazy rules. There was all this stuff. But I think what the NWSL has done, and they have the ability to do, is they can pull from the other countries and see what they do that works well. They
Mhm.
can also pull from the MLS and see what they did and didn't work well. And they've made their changes quicker. And to be honest, weirdly, the Paul Riley incident has really gave a lot of power to the players, and they went into their union and were able to fight for things, which I think they could have fought a little harder for certain things, but they were able to get more rights given to them. And that really helped the league and helps the player, because who do we all go and watch and see? It's the players we're there for. I'm not there for the owners. I'm not there for the coaching, really. I'm there for the players. That's who I want to see. So now they have this ability to bring in a higher quality player. Yes, right now with 14 teams, that helps the parity. The MLS wants to grow, and a lot of their growth is based on sponsorship, I feel. It's not necessarily growth on the field, which we're starting to see with some of the players that are coming over, but they're going to have to make it more of a player friendly league, the MLS, which the NWSL did way faster. And now players want to be here and want to play here in the league, because we are America. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to be. So European players do want to come here and play in this country, but they want to play for a good league where they have rights. And I think that's what the MLS needs to look for. And I think that's kind of what Tim Howard was speaking on. It wasn't just who to bring over, but we have to pay these players. And if you're paying these players, you have to pay these players. So we have to raise the standard all the way around. We need better American players to be in the league to match these European players that we are bringing over.
That's the biggest thing that MLS kind of just has to look at, is taking a holistic look at everything again ahead of the season, ahead of all these new transactions, new coaches coming in. How can we hype up not just the Messi of the world, but make, Joe Schmo, who's on Austin FC, be the exciting new thing? And we've said it before, it's showing their faces and getting them to actually feel like they have kind of like not have stake in the league, because the players definitely feel that way, otherwise they wouldn't play, but making them more of the face rather just the crest of the league. Like, we want to see who's actually playing for these clubs. So MLS season starts soon. It's going to be fun to see how these teams compete and how these different cities start to show up more as soccer grows in the States. We don't have any yellow pennies this week, Scotty, but the biggest game this week is the Super Bowl. 49ers against the Chiefs. I thought before we go, we both make a prediction on the game. Do we have a prediction on the score? And do we have a prediction on the game? And is it a yes or no if Taylor Swift is going to show up?
Well, it's going to be hard because she's coming from Tokyo, right?
Yeah, but I mean, all of the
She could
analysts
do
have,
it. She could do it. She
yeah,
could
they've
do
said
it.
they can do it.
She can burn tons of oil and kill the
Her emissions
environment.
numbers.
She'll make it. She'll make it. I personally am hoping for the 49ers. I became a 49ers fan last year when they went after McCaffrey. I just like the way they handle their business as an organization. I like their coach. But I think it's going to be a really hard game. I think the defenses are going to have to play really well. I think then reading the defenses, and it's hard to go against Mahomes. I understand that. But I just, for me, I'm hoping for the 49ers. And I would think if the 49ers win, it's going to be something like a 30-24 kind of a game.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I see like a 31-28 score line. Maybe not like the highest numbers we typically see these teams score because it is a Super Bowl. But I agree. I want the 49ers to win. We got Taylor Swift to the actual Super Bowl. I don't think we need to see anything else. I am a Swiftie / Kelsey fan. I stand the relationship, but I'm more of a football fan and I want to see a good game. And I'm more of a Brock Purdy fan. I just think the way he approaches the game, the way he's approached just this season in general, and how he goes about his business is somebody that everybody should look up to and learn something out of his life lessons. And are we going to stop talking about Brock Purdy like not making as much money as Patrick Mahomes? I just would love to see what he thinks.
Patrick Mahomes, Caleb Williams makes more money than Brock Purdy. There's a whole bunch of college players make more money.
Exactly. It's kind of funny.
Clark should be making more money than Brock Purdy. That'd be my guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think after this Super Bowl, regardless if they win or lose, he should make a lot more money. I know, what's his rookie contract? Isn't that up like 2025?
Yeah, I'm not positive, but he's going to make a lot of more money. He's going to make and then like if I don't know what company, but if I'm a company, like that's the kind of guy I'm looking to get. Like that guy takes more criticism as a super winner than anybody I ever known in sports. Like the guy only does is win games. He just wins. And everyone's like, he's this, he's that. He's
poor.
He doesn't have a big arm. He doesn't I thought the name of the game was winning. How we do it. Who cares? And
everyone wants to make like Christian McCaffrey is the reason they're having success because he has him in his backfield. Like BS, they're at the Super Bowl. A lot of people have great running backs on their team, but are they at the Super Bowl? No.
Christian McCaffrey did not make him come back from that game. Two games ago? Like he's had to come back. Like before this year, what was he like 0-20 or something when behind in the second half? Shanahan. And this is the first two times that they've come back in the second half and won the game in his career as Shanahan. And that's Purdy. Purdy had to do that because you lose your running game when you're coming from behind. You got to throw the ball. And he's made decisions. He's also real good at, but so is Mahomes. You have a bad first half does not mean that these two are going to come out and have a bad second half. They just figure it out. They figure out how to play. They figure out the defenses and they play better in the second half. Both of them every single time. So I don't know how we're going to have a bad game because these are two quality lineups, two real good teams, man.
Yeah.
With two good coaches, it's going to be fun to watch.
You have a Super Bowl food that must be there?
No, not really. I mean, sometimes we do wings, nachos. I love hot dogs, so my wife doesn't. So, but I don't know. She asked me, "Do I want something special?" And I don't. I really don't. I just think it's going to be a great game.
Shout out Kirsten, Scotty's PR rep and Scotty's personal chef for the Super Bowl. We got to get.
No, she's just asking what she would need. She's my personal shopper. I'd probably be the one cooking, unless it was like nachos. She does nachos, but usually I cook everything else for like big parties and stuff like that.
I'm the same way. I need homemade mac and cheese, and I kind of want buffalo chicken dip sandwiches though with those King Hawaiian rolls. I mean, you can't go wrong, and the Super Bowl is the only time that I really make those. So I think we're gonna have a great Super Bowl. I think the food for me personally will be great. I hope it's great for you guys. Leave your predictions in the comments and what you think the score line is going to be and what you think is who you think is going to win the Super Bowl. And until then, I guess we'll find out next Wednesday when we are back. Make sure to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. You can watch us every single week on YouTube. Feel free to leave us a 5-star rating. It just helps us get our show out to a bigger audience. And thank you so much for tuning in to Straight from the Pitch. We'll see you back here next Wednesday.
Have a great week.